Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and here we are continuing the series of what Yeshua Messiah said. Because so many people want to go off the commentary of scriptures, but they don't actually go off what a Messiah said. Well, we're taking in this series all the words, all the commentary out by everyone else, and we're just keeping what Messiah said. And this is the 5th episode. And today we're going to continue in Matthew, and we're going to be reading 13 of Matthew 5 to 16 of Matthew 5, which talks about us being a salt and a light. But first, let's continue and see where we're at from last time, because last time we saw the Beatitudes and what it was to be blessed. We saw Yeshua Messiah walking up into a hill, and all of the crowds were following him, and he sat down to talk to his disciples. Now we have to remember, this crowd that was following him were known as his followers. They were called followers of the way. Those people today that are called Christians or Messianic believers or whatever you want to call yourself, if you believe Yeshua is Messiah and you want to follow what he said to do, you are known as a follower of the way. Now, if you call yourself a follower of the way, but you don't live the way he taught, guess what? That's an oxymoron. He wants us to live a certain way, and we have to stop going off other people's ideas, and we have to look at what Messiah said specifically. And continuing in Matthew 5:13, it says, "You are the salt for the land, but if salt becomes tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except being torn out for people to trample on." Well, we have to understand that salt today is used to make something spicy or to taste quite well and give it some flavor. But in the old days, when Yeshua was giving this idea, salt was used as a preservative. It was used to preserve things so they didn't go rotten. And it wasn't the average non-believer or non-follower listening to him at that time. It was the average follower, the follower of Messiah that he was talking to. So these were people that already had a passion to learn and follow the way of Messiah. So he was telling them to be the salt of the earth. In other words, he was teaching them what to do so they never went rotten in their attitude, they never went rotten in their works, in their walks, or anything. That's what he was teaching them, and that's what he was telling them. So he wanted the people to be like salt, and it never to lose its flavor, because useless salt in those days, what they did with it was, salt wasn't in a little cute salt shaker the way it is today, where you could just sprinkle it on something to make something taste better. In those days, salt was like a big rock, pretty much a big rock, and when it didn't have any use anymore to preserve something, they would throw it away, and the people on the road would just step on it and trample on it, which goes right along with what it says in the scriptures. It says, again, in 5:13, "You are the salt for the land, but if salt becomes tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except being thrown out for people to trample on." And all of the people, the non-believers, the people that don't follow Messiah, they're going to trample on you and everything you do if you call yourself a follower of the way, but you don't live the way he told us to live. It goes on to continue talking about being a light for the world, and we're going to talk about that now, but we have to remember, folks, you know, it's a very fine line between being a follower of the way and not continuing to pray and read and discuss what he wanted you to do. Because if you just say, "I'm a follower of the way," and you don't continuously study and pray about his word, very soon you can become rotten, because your fleshly desires can overtake his wonderful spirit that will be in your heart if you decide to follow him and you consistently follow his way. For those people out there that say all we have to do is say a couple of words and we're saved and we don't have to continue doing anything else, well, understand that's a way that's going to be, the salt is going to go tasteless. And he doesn't want that to happen, and it was the reason why he used salt. See, when we use these scriptures, or we look at these scriptures, we have to remember they were given at a time that's different of today. Today we look at salt as something that's completely different as what it was then. And again, back then it was to preserve so things didn't go rotten. Well, going on to Matthew 5:14, it says, "You are light for the world." Again, he wasn't talking to the non-believers or the non-followers. He was talking to the believers, those that had a passion to follow him. And he was telling them they are a light for the world. The world back then, like the world today, is darkness. And they are a light for this darkness. And he is reassuring them. And he was talking to not only his disciples here, but the crowds that gathered around. All of them heard him. And he was telling all of them, "You are my followers and you are a light for this world." But don't forget what he just said. You know, do not go rotten. Do not go saltless. Be the salt and be the light. And it continues, it says, a town built on a hill cannot be hidden. And Yeshua gave many great parables for people to understand. And a town built in an open view on the top of a hill cannot be hidden. It says in verse 5:15, likewise, when people light a lamp, they don't cover it with a bowl or put a lampstand on it. They want it to shine for everyone in a house. So you don't want to cover your light. Your light is your righteousness. And your righteousness is going to be determined by your will and your passion and your action to follow the word. And you don't want to cover that up and make people think that you're just like the rest of the world. In other words, you want to be set apart. That is your light, being set apart from this world today. And we look at this, it says, in the same way you let your light shine before people so that they may see the good things you do and praise your Father in heaven. So we want to make sure that we're doing things that glorify our wonderful Creator, and disobedience does not glorify Him in any way. We want to make sure in every single way we're glorifying Him, and the best way we can glorify our Creator is by listening to what He told us to do. Listen, folks, He told us and showed us over and over again that we have to first do something. Like He told Yachanan, he was supposed to do everything righteousness calls for. And we are never ever to stop. We are continuously do that and never lose our flavor. And always be salty, always be a shining light, and never cover it. Anytime we do something that transgresses from the word of our wonderful Creator, what we're doing is covering that light. And if we cover it too much, we'll be walking around in darkness just like everyone else. He wants us to be a light in that darkness, so we shine in these dark places. And when we're shining in the dark places, just like in many other areas, when you see a real dark place and you see a light in the distance, like a big lighthouse or something else, it's so much more noticeable because it goes so against the world. That's what being set apart is. A lighthouse is set apart in a cloudy, dark ocean. And a light in the world is set apart in the darkness of the world. That's how He wants us to be. He used many parables in the scriptures to give examples of what we need to do and how we need to be. And remember, He told us in the last episode that who the people are blessed, and He told us what we need to be doing. And He continued in this parable, sitting on the top of a hill, speaking to the crowds of followers, of believers, and telling them and showing them that they are to be a light of the world today. We have to understand that He did not come, and we'll see in the next episode when we start reading, to do as so many people claim He came to do, and that's just say, well, we're covered by His blood, so we don't have to do anything else. Everything is great, fine, and dandy. I met too many people today. I'll use health as an example. They end up becoming a believer or a so-called believer. They accept Yeshua, but they don't see the responsibility or take action to do what they got to do. And they say, well, now I can eat whatever I want because now I'm saved. Well, they eat whatever they want, and then they get sick. And then they say, by His stripes, I'm healed. Well, not if you're eating, the diet goes against the diet He told us to eat, you're not healed. And then some people say, well, my health is going to be restored. Not if you're living a way He told us to live against. When you accept Yeshua as Messiah, you should have every desire to please Him. And the way you're going to please Him is by doing what He told us to do. Yes, we're not saved by works, but if we're truly saved, we should have every single desire to do His works. We have to take a serious look and realize. Now, I'm not just going to explain what these scriptures mean. I want people to understand who was talking about and who was saying these scriptures. These scriptures were by the mouth out of Yeshua Messiah Himself. And this is what He told us to do. These are the things we have to follow, the instructions that we should be willing to follow. And here's what I tell everybody. When you fall in love with somebody, you want to do anything possible to please them and get them to love you back. And you don't care how it looks to the world. All you care about is accomplishing your goal, regardless of what the world says, thinks about you, or anything like that. And that's how we have to be from Messiah. We have to be in love with Him and His message so much that regardless of what the world says, we can care less. Because we know we're following the way of Messiah. Well, the greatest way we're going to do that is realize that this is a love story, and Messiah loves us, and we have to love Him back. And when we're in love with somebody, we do things that they say love is blind. Well, let's be blind to the world's ways and the world's comments and everything the world says. And let's be excited about accomplishing our goals. And that is when we accept Yeshua as Messiah, we're saying we want to follow His way. We want to do what He wants us to do. And I know a lot of people today that claim to be saved, and they say they're believers. A lot of them call themselves Christians. Some people call themselves even Messianic believers. But their actions don't match up to the way they're living, doesn't match up to Scripture and the message of Messiah. I met somebody the other day who said she's been a believer for over 50 years. 50 years, and she never heard that she was supposed to keep the Sabbath. 50 years, and she never heard that she was supposed to keep the set appointed times like Passover and Shavuot and Tabernacles. 50 years, basically 50 years, and she just spent it studying or reading something in a renewed covenant, but never reading the original covenant that Yeshua Messiah quoted so often, that said throughout all your generations, this is what you're supposed to do to be blessed. 50 years. I met another believer who's been a believer for 30 years and she never read all the scriptures. I don't care how slow you read. Even if you read 1 page a day, you're going to get through all your scriptures. People are losing their passion for the word, and instead they're just looking for the passion to follow man and man's ways, and they're running into problems. Well, everybody, we're going to continue this series called Yeshua Said, and continue to see that he said something different that's being taught today. But you know what? He also said there's good ground to sow your seeds, and that's what we have to do. We have to get back to his word. So everybody, it's not what I'm saying, it's what Yeshua said. If you have any comments or questions, you can post them below the video. But understand, if you have an issue with something I'm saying, I'm quoting the words of our Messiah. So if you have an issue with the words of our Messiah, that's a serious issue that Messiah might have with you. Look at the scripture and see what the scripture says. And I am sure that he tells us if we follow his way, there is a more excellent way for all of us. And he will give us blessings. So thank you very much for checking us out. Check out the previous episodes and the future episodes on this series called Yeshua Said. Until then, everybody, have a great day and shalom, shalom.